Hello, everybody, and welcome to the making of a trading card set. My name is Dustin. I'm the Associate Product Manager for Trading Cards at Cryptozoic. And joining me today are two awesome guys, JV and Shane. They're from the design team. This is going to be a behind-the-scenes look into everything that goes into making a trading card set. So having them on board is really, really awesome, so we can kind of see their process for designing and creating these awesome cards. So we don't have a ton of time today. It is a long process to fit into about 25 minutes, so I'm just going to jump right into it and start sharing my screen. Maybe you guys can let me know if you can see it on your end. Can you guys see that? Awesome. All right, so the first step that we take whenever making any new product, whether it's trading cards, collectibles, or games, is determining the license. We have a number of different things that we have the license to, but if it's a brand new property we haven't worked with before, the first question we have to ask is it a hot property? Meaning, is there a fan base already established that could really get excited for a new potential product? If it's something that is old, we look to see if the fan base has stood the test of time and see if there is a market there. But usually that's the first step with regard to acquiring new licenses to work with. We also want to ask if there are available assets, which basically means, are there images that we can use, preferably high resolution images for the design team, as well as props and wardrobe. And as you can imagine, if it's an older set, those may not be available. And then we also ask who is in it, who are the stars, who are the people that are going to drive in the fans, especially when we start talking about autograph cards. And this discussion is had with every single trading card set that we've made up to this point and that we will continue to make. So once we have that established, then we have to familiarize ourselves with that property. At Cryptozoic, we tend to select TV shows or movies that we're already fans of. But if it's something that's brand new to us, we have to be familiar with it. We have to use all of these resources, all of these streaming services to basically become masters of it. Our slogan is fans first, and it means not only are we putting our fans as our top priority, but we ourselves have to be fanatical about what we're working on. We can't expect to make compelling products if we aren't super psyched, if we don't know all of the inside jokes, all of the memes, all the references, and all that stuff beforehand. So that's always our first step. Next, we put together a formal proposal to the licensor, basically breaking down how we want the trading card set to look like. And we submit a wish list to them. And we're going to use Outlander Season 4 as an example throughout this whole presentation. So this is a snapshot of a piece of the wish list that we submitted for that set. As you can see, we're very, very specific with the pieces of wardrobe that we want. We typically submit one of these for all the images we want, as well as the props and wardrobe. And the more that we ask for, the better, because they tend to scale back what they can provide us. So we try to ask for every single thing that pops up. And depending on the licensor, this is usually about a 1 to 2 month process, especially if we're asking for a lot. But upon getting all the assets, then the real work begins. So we start mapping out the set, and this doesn't take a ton of time because at this point we've already had enough time to kind of concept and think of what we want the set to look like. But we try to solidify the scope of the project. Is it something super premium like CZX with a higher price point? Or is it something smaller scale like we did with Rick and Morty Season 3, where we might sell it direct? We also decide what the ratios are. If you're opening up a hobby box, can you expect to get an autograph and a sketch card? Are we including wardrobe cards? Maybe there's a chance of getting 2 autograph cards. We're turning all of these knobs to create the fan experience. We're always thinking about what is that moment like when a collector opens up a box and starts tearing open packs. We determine what the autograph signer roster is, who are the key signers that have to be in the product, as well as the sketch artist roster, selecting artists whose style matches that property. All of this is determined very early on in the process. And then as everything arrives back from the licensor, then we get to start working on it and seeing how that fits into our template for the set. So it all begins with going through everything, the images and the wardrobe. As you can see there, that is a photo of some of the wardrobe that we got from Outlander Season 4. It was tagged and labeled very, very nicely for us. We measure it and we determine what we can make out of it. This is when we start having fun and coming up with dual wardrobes, triple wardrobes. This is when we decide what the crash numbers are going to be, how we're going to limit certain cards versus others. And then once we have that figured out, then we cut it all up and we separate it based on each card. And we store that away, and when it's time to ship it to the printer, we ship it on over to them. So then once we have the assets that we need to design the set, I give it to the designers and they put together amazing, amazing cards for us. So I'm gonna kick it to you guys, JV and Shane, and I'm gonna start clicking through the next few slides, which will show Outlander Season 4 cards, and maybe you can give some insight into your process for designing these.
Yeah, I'll give just kind of a brief overview. We, from a design standpoint, you know, our job is to interpret the television show in a creative and fun way that works for trading cards. And so there's certain things we need to follow, certain, you know, if it's an autograph card, we need to make sure there's a big enough space for the autograph. If it's a wardrobe, we need to do the technical things to make sure it can be inserted in there. And then, you know, Dustin will give us a checklist. We need to make sure that the type that he wants on there will fit. There's those sorts of things. And then we also have to look at what the licensor gives us, which they usually give us some photos, maybe some fonts. Occasionally they'll give us some textures or key art, you know, movie posters and things like that. And we take that and then we put our own kind of creative spin on it. We'll create our own color palettes, pull some fonts that we think are appropriate, maybe find our own textures. And this goes for every brand. You know, we try to be as creative as we can, but stay within the guidelines that are set by the licensor, because everything that we do, they have to approve to make sure it fits with the show and fits in the style of the show or movie that we're working on. So Shane designed this set. He did a really great job. He can kind of explain, you know, some of these kind of technical things, like you'll notice the blue areas on this card that's on the screen right now in this pink box. And then he can maybe explain, you know, some of the choices he made and how he came to some of those. So Shane, coming to us from a forest here, I think.
From Scotland.
It's perfect.
All right.
That's right. So this card that we're looking at right now, this is a base card. And early on in the process, like the other guys said, the licensor will send us a bunch of assets. Sometimes they are just posters. Sometimes they'll send us patterns or things that they've designed for their own merchandise or their own marketing. And sometimes they'll even send us like scans of paper props that are in the show. And I will look at that kind of stuff and kind of try to absorb it just to get a feel for the show or the particular season. You know, season 4 Outlander was very different from the seasons before. So a lot of stuff was kind of new. For instance, in the first poster they showed, it's like Claire and Jamie standing on a cliff and it says "A Brave New World." And they used a really modern font. So for this set, I used that same font for the captions on the front and the back to kind of bring it in line with what Sony was doing. And then JV mentioned these pink and blue spots on the card. The blue spot is for the printer, so they know that's where I want foil to go. And we use a bright blue color so it doesn't actually accidentally get printed. And yes, Paul, the pink is where the crash number would go. So that just tells the printer, put the crash number here. And they'll use whatever font they use for their crash numbering. And you can see here on this chase card, again, there's blue that marks out where the foil is going to go, and the pink where the crash numbering will go. And we use these colors that are called spot colors, and there's something that the printer can kind of pull off the card so they can see what's underneath. And when they make the foil, they can put any color. So Dustin will go and pick the colors for the foil stamps, and they can replace that blue spot with whatever foil we're going to use, or leave it off for if it's a card with no foil on it. So for these cards, these ones are really cool. The little quote cards. We got to bring some of the tartan back in, which we kind of stayed away from in the base cards because it was de-emphasizing Scotland in favor of America. But for these quotes, we went back to like a very Scottish style, and I wanted to relate it to the clan. So I brought the tartan back in, and the Fraser symbol there. So these cards are really cool, and it's a lot of fun to kind of sort through the assets and see what can we do, and kind of pick out a palette based on maybe the key art or some of the set photography and kind of blend that together.
Yeah, thanks for your insight, guys. Is there anything else you want to add about maybe not specifically these cards, but just the design process as a whole?
Just that it's really fun, and that we always like hearing feedback from fans and collectors because you know, even though it's subjective and people have different opinions, a lot of times it gives us great ideas about things to try or things that maybe didn't work as well as they could have. So, you know, it's always great to hear back from you guys about, especially, you know, things you like. And I'm sure that Dustin feels the same way about content and things like that. But it's great to hear it as far as the design goes. We really enjoy hearing back from you. So keep the comments coming.
That's true. I joined a couple of the Facebook groups that talk about the cards, the collectors groups, and I saw a lot of great feedback on the CZX set and the Season 3 set. And I kind of used some of your guys' comments to go through. And for instance, some people said some of the cards were a little dark. So I took that into account when I was setting these up. I tried to make sure they were nice and bright, or talking to Dustin if we could find better photos. I think we changed some of the font sizes because some of them were really small. So that kind of stuff, that feedback that you guys give us, definitely we see it, and it definitely goes into the process early on. We try to incorporate your feedback, and we want it to be a set that you guys are happy with.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, guys, for your insight. I'm going to keep rolling along. There's still a lot more steps in the process, even once this entire set has been designed. But hopefully that will give everybody who's watching an idea of what goes into it and how much we appreciate their feedback. So once everything is designed, there are a number of rounds of approval internally that take place between me and the designers. I will take a look at it, proofread it, check for legal lines and things like that. And it'll go back and forth with hopefully not too many rounds of revisions. And eventually our goal is to submit it to the licensor. Everything that needs to be printed has to be submitted first. And that includes not just the cards, but the packaging, the box, the binder, everything. So once we go through that process and we decide to submit it, they take a look at it. It usually only takes about 14 business days for them to fully proofread something, depending on the licensor. Sometimes it takes longer, especially if it's a brand new concept they haven't seen before. But usually it's about 2 weeks. They'll give us one of the statuses. It's either approved, not approved, or approved with changes. Approved means we can print it tomorrow. Not approved means that we need to resubmit it and make fundamental changes, and approved with changes means that there's some tweaks that need to be made, but once those are made, then we can move forward to printing without submitting again. So that we go through a couple more rounds of that with the licensor back and forth, and then once everything looks good to them, then we can print. But just backing up for a second though, I still haven't talked about one of the key processes in the development of any trading card set, which is autograph acquisition. Autograph cards are super important to us, and we know that acquiring them takes a lot of time. So usually this can be 4 to 6 months, maybe even longer. We ship out cards all over the country. In the case of something like Outlander, it's internationally. So we're a lot of times in a position where we're waiting for cards to be returned to us. Sometimes that delays the release of the set, but it's something that we're willing to do because they are such an important part of the trading card product. So like I said before, we decide who's key to the set. We come up with a list of signers we want to go after. We reach out to their agents and we make a formal offer. It's usually a certain dollar amount per card that they're signing. And we try to emphasize that we want to keep the quantities low. If Sam Heughan wanted to sign 1,000 autograph cards, we wouldn't put all of those into a single set because they would become too common they wouldn't, they wouldn't inspire like happiness when you pull it out of a box and be like, here's another Sam Heughan card. Maybe not. He is pretty awesome and our fans love him, but we want to keep those quantities low, and especially if we can crash number, all the better. Sometimes agents want to make really big deals. In those instances, we spread them across multiple products. As you can see in this photo here, Sam Heughan is signing for CZX Outlander, but during the same signing, he was signing for Outlander Season 4. So a lot of times we knock out multiple sets at the same time, which is really efficient. These cards have to be approved as well. Once the agreements are signed, we ship out all the cards to the signers, along with some signing pens and some instructions. We try to get them to do inscriptions as much as possible, which is great. This is the normal process, but every once in a while, we'll do in-person signings. This is a photo of me with Sam Heughan. I met him in Glasgow, Scotland to do this signing. This is not normal. There was a random series of circumstances that led to this, but sometimes we meet stars at shows or conventions, and that's how we get their signature. Whatever we have to do to lock them in, basically. Similar to autograph process is the sketch card acquisition process. It's very long because, again, it's a waiting game. Once we ship out sketch cards to artists, they could turn them around very, very quickly, which a lot do, but there might be some that we're waiting on, and it could push back the release date of a product. So we like to give ourselves a lot of time to get sketch cards acquired. So as I mentioned before, we determine which artist style matches the property. And then we begin reaching out to everyone on our roster. Our artist roster is a living, breathing document, and we're always adding new artists who want to collaborate with us. We make deals based on the number of sketch cards they produce for us. It's a dollar amount for everybody, a certain dollar amount for everybody, but the quantities vary across artists. We provide them reference images, which helps, especially if they aren't familiar with the property. We want to give them characters and key elements that they should depict. And then when the agreements are signed, we ship the cards out to them, but the cherry on top is the artist proofs. And these are sketch cards that the artists get to keep. They can sell them, they can put them in their portfolio. It's just a nice extra thank you for the artists that do so much work for us. All the autograph cards and the sketch cards have to be approved by the licensor as well, which adds more time to the production process. So as you can see, there is a wide range of styles that we receive. And our goal, once we have all the sketch cards back in-house, is to hand collate. We want to make sure that there are no duplicate artists popping up in consecutive cases. We want to completely randomize it and spread out the artists evenly across the production run. So this is a long, admittedly tedious process. We literally sit down and we lay down all the cards from all the artists on the table. We have a method of randomizing them. But because of this, it helps build trust in our collectors to know that there won't be duplicates and that they can always chase for their favorite artists on an even playing field. Then, once we have everything ready to go, we ship the wardrobe, the autograph cards, and the sketch cards to the printer, and we let them know how we want it to be packed out. We tell them there must be one autograph and one sketch card per box, or one autograph and wardrobe card per box. Basically, our whole strategy of what we want to go in the set. Then they send us printing proofs. These proofs are very, very large. We also call them 100 up forms because they often have 100 cards fit onto them. These are the raw sheets that are on the actual production line that a series of blades cuts into a grid, and that's how they form the cards. They cut out all of these cards, and eventually they're packed out into the set. So they send us one of these early on so we can take a look at it. We can see if the backs match the fronts. We can see if the foil all matches up. JV and Shane, is there any other things that we specifically, especially from a design perspective, look for once we get these sheets?
Yeah, there's a few things we check on. There's some technical settings that we have that make sure that, especially small type prints correctly, and that it's not too blurry. And so we check on that, especially for little legal lines and things. And then we, like you're saying, we check the card numbers on the back, and we make sure that none of the images are going to be cut, because what you see here, there's an area that we call the bleed that's cut off on the edges of the card. So we just kind of go through and we have a little checklist of things that we look at for quality before we approve to get everything printed. It's our last chance to catch any mistakes that Shane might have made.
Yeah.
And it's great to see all of these things printed on the paper that they're going to be finally printed on. Seeing stuff on the computer or even printed on just the office printer, you don't get the same feel for the quality that you do seeing this actual one. So this is a great chance for us to see what the final card will look like and if it's up to the quality that we want them to look like when they go out.
Definitely. So we have to approve this before the printing can commence. But one of the other final fail-safes is the case check. It looks a little something like that. It's basically a sealed case of the product as it will look, as the final product will look once it's released. The printer sends us one of these, we tear it open and we make sure everything that's in there needs to be in there. The autograph cards, sketch cards, we actually have a checklist that we use to audit and make sure that there are complete base and chase sets, that the hits are all there, that the collation plan was followed. This is also our chance to see if there's maybe any mechanical errors on the production line. Maybe some cards got damaged in the same corner every single time. This is our chance to catch those, raise up the red flag, and let the printer know so they can adjust their pack-out strategy. So once we approve that, we're basically done, and it's in their hands at this point. They ship out to the distributors. We have a couple distribution partners that we work with who send out our product to mom and pop shops, online retailers, trading card dealers, brick and mortar shops all over the world. And the shipping process usually takes 2 weeks. So once we learn when it's shipping, that's usually when we come up with the release date. And then that's also when we put up the web checklist. So we let everybody know all the cool cards that they can chase down. So in a very, very tiny nutshell, that is what goes into making a trading card set. And then once it's released, we get to sit back. The designers mentioned this. It's really gratifying to hear some feedback from collectors about what they liked, what they didn't like, what we can improve upon. It's so gratifying spending all of this time, a year or maybe even more than a year, working on this set. And then when it's finally released, like watching those box break videos and hearing the great feedback, it's so super rewarding and reminds me every day why I do what I do. And I'm sure you guys share the same sentiment. Is there anything else that we want to mention before we wrap this up?
There's been some talk about the playing cards in the comments, and I know Jamie's answered some questions. They look really cool. We just sent them to print. The designs are really cool. I don't know if you want to add anything about the playing cards, Dustin.
Yeah, one thing, I'm always trying to have exclusive information whenever we do these panels. One thing that we actually haven't mentioned about the playing cards is that they will also have foil variants available in the product. So you can have the normal playable versions of them, which are available in every box, but there will also be one of those that is a foil variant, excuse me, that will be in every hobby box as well. So you can get the fully playable version that you can bend and shuffle without it getting damaged, or you can get the foil version, which may be more collector friendly, that you can put into a binder. So that's something that's really, really cool that we're excited to announce today. It looks like we're coming up on our time here. Miraculously, we got it all under 25 minutes. Thank you so much, JV and Shane, for getting on this call and sharing a little bit about your process. It mean a lot.
Thanks for having us. We always have fun working on these, and it's definitely a team effort. There's several people that work on these and a lot of planning. So I think it's cool for everybody to see how many people it takes and what goes into creating a set and why sometimes it takes a while to get it together. It was helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And thanks for everyone tuning in.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.